All right, we've begun.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Laurie Fox. I'm the Director of Educational Technology for CIT, and today I'm presenting with the CDL, the Center for Digital Learning, where I'm the Assistant Director for Online Education. Today, we're going to talk about to-do lists. One bite at a time is my clever title, and I'll explain what that means in just a few minutes. So, part of making your to-do list work for you lies in these 4 steps. The first is to collect everything. This is what my collection looks like from yesterday. I grabbed a piece of paper, I had some sticky notes. As I'm working throughout the day, I write everything down. That way I don't forget. I also have a to-do list that's on my phone and on my computer, so it's always with me. The second step that's really important is to review routinely. One of the things I did at the end of the day is I took this paper and turned it all into action items and put it on my to-do list, so I don't have to worry about that piece of paper anymore. We're going to talk about breaking it into smaller pieces. That's the one bite at a time. And then finally, we're going to talk just a little bit about prioritization and how to make sure you are able to do the things on your to-do list. So today's presentation is related to elephants. Dorothy Parker said, "Women and elephants never forget." Now, originally I had thought the quote was "elephants never forget," but Dorothy Parker was an American poet, writer, critic, and satirist based in New York. She lived in the early 1900s. She is best known for a lot of her quotes. And I think she's someone you can listen to because she also said, if you don't have anything nice to say, come sit by me. And of course, I talk to myself. I'm a good speaker and I appreciate an intelligent audience. So elephants never forget. Now, one of the issues with all of your to-do items is how many times does somebody say, "Hey, Amanda, can you do this for me?" Or you know that you need to pick up your prescription today, but you forget by the end of the day. So there are many ways that you can keep track of your to-do lists. I think the number one way that many people do it is still paper. A to-do list on paper has many benefits. I mean, first of all, it's easy to carry around, but then you've got that satisfying check at the end of the day when you check it off. Also, there are built-in applications if you have a smartphone or a computer. We all have Google accounts. Google has tasks. And if you have an Android phone, it's called Google Keep. Those tie together. You can use Apple Reminders, and both of those applications are free, and you can do things like label and organize your tasks, and you can assign due dates to them too. I like to use an application. For many years, I've used an app called Todoist, but there are many, many others out there. The number one rule, though, is that you must keep things on your list. So it's important to collect things all in one place, like I described. And I have lists for each area of my life. So I have a list for work. I have a list for personal things. I'm a grad school student, so I have a list for all of my schoolwork. I have a shopping list. I mean, this way I can sort my list and look at just what I'm working on. Alexis Carrel is actually a French surgeon. He received the Nobel Prize in 1912. And this quote is very important to remember because you need to make a plan. You want to make a plan of your day and you want to review it at the end of a day. A list is great, but if it's sitting here off to the side and you never look at it, how do you know you're working on the right thing? So I believe you need to review routinely. And I do two types of, actually I do 3 types of reviews. The first one is to recognize, where do your tasks come from? You get a ton of email. We talked about that in our last session. You have meetings added to your calendar, maybe deadlines added to your calendar. You get a syllabus every semester from each of your faculty that lists all of your assignments that are due. But then you also get text messages and invitations. You hear announcements in class, meetings. All of these items are coming from different locations. Every week, I do it on Sunday, but you can pick any day of the week. I sit down and look at all of my areas where my tasks come from, and I collect everything. I prioritize it, and I schedule it for the week. We're going to talk a little bit about scheduling, but one of the things that I do when I'm looking at my tasks is I say, what assignments do I have this week? What meetings do I have this week? Is it rejuvenation day and I want to put a big X on that day and give myself a free day and not worry about my tasks? It's important to look at this review too at tasks you never have time for. When we talk about prioritization and what you work on in the day, you're going along, you're checking off. It gets to be the end of the day, you're done. You got everything done. You've got that one task, that one thing that you want to do, and you say, I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. At my weekly review, I look at those kinds of tasks and I say, is that something that I really am ever going to do? So quite honestly, on Sunday, I delete a lot of tasks, especially things like watch that recorded lecture. I can't watch every recorded lecture I want to watch. So I feel free to let it go because I look at it and I realize that's not something I need to do right now. But what you can do on Sunday or Monday or Friday is you can look at your to-do list and say, this is what has to be done this week. Then we're going to break it down by day. And we're going to look at what can we realistically get done in a day. Now, let's say it's Monday. I have a pretty full day of classes. I have an organization meeting, and I work part-time. I work tonight. I'm not going to put 27 tasks on my to-do list for Monday. But as I get ready for the week, if I have something that's due Tuesday, and I know I can't do it Monday, you can schedule it for Sunday to get ready. And again, I'll remind you, when you're planning your day, ending the day with undone items is not unexpected and not a failure. But at the end of the day, I look at my to-do list. I try to catch it before I'm really done for the day and say, what's left? Oh, snap, I forgot. I promised Amanda that I would write a description for her today. I better take some time to do that. Or I told Amanda I would do it this week, so it can wait for tomorrow and I can move it to my tomorrow list. So reviewing your to-do list makes it a living document to where you know that you're not losing track of what you need to do. This is one of my favorite quotes about projects or assignments, big things you have to do. There is only one way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Now, I think that most of us know that Desmond Tutu is a pretty famous archbishop from South Africa, and he also is a Nobel Prize winner. And what he means by this quote is that everything that you have to do this semester, this year, it seems daunting, overwhelming, and impossible, but you can get it done one bite at a time. So let's talk a bit about what is on your to-do list. And I think that it's important to remember that you need to break your big projects into smaller bites. So you might have on your to-do list that you have a research paper due, but the task that you're going to do today is identify your topic. And then next week, maybe you're going to write your first rough draft. On your syllabi, many faculty are aware that this is a great way to keep on track, to keep your assignments submitted on time for class. So they've helped you by giving you intermediate steps for the assignment so that you know what's due, when you should be doing things to stay on track for that deadline. Sometimes you have to create it for yourself. I believe all of you are capable of breaking down a huge assignment into a smaller step. And sometimes that first step just breaks things open so that you can start to make progress. I get overwhelmed by big projects. Applying for a scholarship, applying for grad school, that just represents so much work. But if the first thing you do is to make a list of the schools that you're going to apply, that's something you can do in 15 or 20 minutes, and you're making progress towards your goals. I also like to schedule my tasks. In my accounting grad class, we work in modules, and each of our modules is 2 weeks and 4 chapters long. I'm a procrastinator. It's tempting to me to leave all that work till the last possible minute. I certainly have other things to do during those 2 weeks that take up my time. But what I did at the start of the semester is I made a list. And for each module, I broke down those 2 weeks and gave myself specific deadlines for each of the modules. So instead of thinking, shoot, I have 4 chapters to work on for module 8, I have 1 chapter to work on this week. And I'm able to get it done a little bit at a time, and I schedule it when it works for me. I also find that I need to be specific. And this actually happened to me at the end of the day yesterday with my little scribbled notes. I had written something down. It was a professor's name. I've worked with Dr. Restivo many times, and I'm working with him on 4 or 5 different things. But all I wrote down was Restivo. What does that mean? I don't know. It's important to be specific. So picking up groceries, you know you're going to forget something. But if you write down, get milk, waffles, and cookies, you're not going to forget things. Be an elephant. I think this also gives you an opportunity to have some big goals. Part of the goal setting that I do personally, and actually I use a book where I write down my big goals. Some of my goals are big. I'm working on my master's degree. That's a huge goal. I'm not going to get that done next week. It's something that I'm working on a little bit at a time. Big goals like write a thesis paper aren't reasonable for next week. But things like select a topic, identify your sources, those are manageable. And those are things that you can get done. So I have an annual goals page, and actually I even break mine down into the first half of the year and the second half of the year. Then for each month, I have a list of goals that are month-based, and they're a little bit smaller. Grad school module 6, perfect example, 4 chapters, 2 weeks of work. But then for my weekly goals, it's to complete chapter 8. The other common theme for this is something like, I need to lose 50 pounds. That's a big goal. I need to lose 1 pound. You can do that this week. This is a frog. Mark Twain also gives us a great quote for how to prioritize what we're going to work on today. If you need to eat a frog, do it first thing in the morning. When you're looking at your to-do list for today, I tend to tackle the hardest thing first. And that's what Mark Twain is saying here. So when you look at your day, think about what is due first, or what is the biggest, hardest thing, and have realistic expectations for yourself. There are several different ways that you can prioritize what you're working on today. This is my way. I have one big thing. I have 3 kind of medium things, like I really should get those done today. Everything else is a small thing. I'd like to do it today, but if it happens tomorrow, that's okay too. I recently saw a video of someone who, instead of 1, 3, 5, did 2 and 8. And the 2 are 2 big things, and the 8 is everything else. Weekly planning helps with this. So this means if I'm thinking that I can do 1 big thing a day, And I'm pretty productive, but I don't do one big thing every day. Like tomorrow, I don't have any big things on my list. It's rejuvenation day. Weekly planning will help you think about, I've got space in my week to do about 5 or 6 big things. Those better be the highest priority. As I was developing the presentation, Amanda and I were sharing pictures back and forth of elephants and frogs together. It was really cracking us up. And this elephant with the trunk raised is a symbol of victory. And the frog is a symbol of fortune. So a to-do list in our example today is victory and good fortune. And I hope that by going through these 4 steps, collect everything, organize it routinely, prioritize, and keep a good list, you'll be able to be more productive with your to-do list. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have something.
Sure.
So I've always tended to, like, I do keep an agenda sort of thing. But I always notice that I tend to just leave my notes in like the chaotic stage, like you were saying with your piece of paper where you would add
Yep.
add as you go. And then I usually feel too tired by the end of the day to go and like write it down in the actual like journal.
Yes.
So like, is that is a good way to solve that, sort of have that one day of the week to go and do that? So that's your solution.
Absolutely, Mel.
Okay.
I love books, and I've always been a list keeper. I've been thinking back, and I always have something where I can take notes. It's mostly digital now, right? But what I do usually with the pieces of paper, and this is what I did yesterday, is I add it to the spot in my planner for this week. And then on Sunday, when I go through, I'm almost cleaning my desk. And I go through and clean up all those little pieces of paper. I'm going to have to write to Dr. Restivo and say, hey, you're on my list. I can't remember what I told you I would do. What do I need to do for you? So setting aside time like that really helps. The review that I do it takes me a little less than an hour, but I've also been doing it for a few years, so I'm used to it. But it really makes me feel in control of my week. And I tell you, working on campus, August is crazy for us as we're getting ready for you all to move back. And when I first started doing this, I thought, I am too busy to plan. Everything's going to be okay. I'm just going to let it happen. And I did not plan for like 3 weeks. I swear I let so many things drop through the cracks. But it also allows me to be realistic. Amanda says to me, do you have time to do a workshop this week? And I look and I see what I have planned for each day. And I say, I do. I can do it on Wednesday. But if I also tell her, I really don't, can we do it next week? She and I have enough of a working relationship that she understands that I really can't fit that in this week. There are also some things that are going to disrupt your day, Mel. And I think that having your list organized lets you step back and focus on what really is due this week that I have to do this week. So I encourage you to think about that, even if you organize once a week. You don't have to do it every day. And sometimes at the end of the day, I'm too tired. So I'll clean it up the next morning. But I try not to let it go too long. Does that help?
Yeah, that seems really helpful.
All right,
Thank you.
Good.
Laurie, don't you find that I'm thinking about your slide where you showed sort of what things you're going to do first and what you could delay, right? Do the most important things first and so on. But you must find that you, instead of doing each item on your list from the beginning to the end before you move on to the next, that you might push yourself forward some amount on one and then switch to doing another or the next 3 before you come back. So it's probably a little bit more fluid than that
It is, Paul.
slide suggests.
One of the things I talk about in my full presentation is fit. There's that parable of the jar, and you have big rocks and smaller pebbles and sand. And if you put the sand in first, you can't fit the bigger things, right?
Right.
So that's what this 135 is like for me. And I'll look at my calendar. My mornings are pretty packed with meetings. So I might not be able to work on that big thing, but I'll look at my day and fit in when I can do it. And I'll leverage my calendar, especially if something is really a gotta have it. I need to protect my my time so that I have enough time to do it.
Yeah.
And underlying a lot of this is learning how long things take me. Okay, so writing a presentation overview for Amanda, which is something we've been doing a lot, that takes me about 10 or 15 minutes. It might take you a half hour.
Right.
So it's not the same for both of us. What we can fit in a day is not the same. And I think that's kind of the difficult thing with our college homework too, is that you need to learn to estimate how long things are going to take you. And in the beginning, I tend to give myself a lot of extra time.
So the other thing I found interesting about your slide is that I operate informally according to a rule that's similar but slightly different, and that I recommend highly to our students. I start on the thing I least want to do first.
You eat the frog.
Not right. It's not necessarily the most important.
Right.
It's the one on the list I know that I most hate having to do, and I don't have to get it done first. But if I start on it, as soon as I start on it, I realize it's not as awful as I thought it was going to be. And also now it's started on, as opposed to just being put aside day after day after day because I know I really, really don't want to do this thing. Right. And of course, if I keep postponing it that way, I'm finally up against a deadline when it has to be done, and I'm going to have to do it anyway. I've known all along I had to do it anyway, even though I was going to hate doing it. But now I have much less time to do it in. So I just try to make a point of getting started on the thing I least want to do first.
There's a lot of psychology in this area too. Some people, it's better for them to do a few quick things first.
Yeah.
To get into the groove of working, and then do your bigger things. For me, the things that I don't want to do that I most often procrastinate are not big things. It's I have to call the repair shop to get my car in for an oil change. I don't like making phone calls. And I'll procrastinate it. And then when I do it and it takes me 3 minutes and the guys are so friendly that I talk to, I'm like, why did I procrastinate that? But yeah, it's fantastic. Anybody else have other questions? We have just a few minutes. I'm going to put up my last slide. I added a link to the Center for Digital Learning where you can find all of these resources in our blog. I also have a full-length video. And Mel, I'm not sure what year you are, but we do, I do teach a productivity tools 1 credit class that I offer in the spring. And I'm always willing to talk about productivity if you have any questions.
Yeah, definitely look into that. I'm a junior, so I still have the time for, a couple little extra things.
Yeah. So
this is great
in the spring.
Right. And this is great too, because these are all skills that are applicable to beyond your undergraduate experience to things for grad school or your professional. And Laurie is very, very good at explaining them. So thank you so much for coming. We hope that this was helpful for you, and you'll hear from us soon with follow-up resources. Have a
Thanks.
great rest of your week.
Thank you.